Tara, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate your time. Tell me about your business. Tell me where you guys are located. Give me your website address, your social media stuff. Go.
Hi, Shane. Thank you for having me. Yes, I am Tara Melvin. I am the owner of Perfect Planning Events. It is a Washington, D.C. area based boutique wedding and event planning company. We've been in business now going on 16 years,
Wow.
all here in the D.C. metro area, but we have traveled outside of the D.C. market as far as in the U.S. as Florida, to outside to Barbados. So we'll travel anywhere, our clients want us to go, so we
Yep.
don't restrict ourselves. Again, we plan weddings, so weddings is the bulk of our business, and then we do plan social events and corporate events.
So your website address is what?
Oh, website address, yes.
Yeah.
So, and we just got that changed, so I hope I do it right. So the website address is perfectplanningevents-dc.com.
Got it. Got it. And how do we find you on social media? Instagram.
On social media, Instagram, it's just Perfect Planning.
All right. Awesome. Great. So you said you've been in the business for 16 years, right? What inspired you to get into the planning business?
Well, I think I was born a planner. Growing up, and I have a little synopsis on my bio page on the website, is that from the time that I could talk and walk, I was the kid in the neighborhood that always had all of the neighborhood kids at the house and was always planning stuff. And when my parents would come home from work, they're like, "Why are all these kids in our house? They need to go home, Tara." To the point that I don't know if kids now know today, I don't even see the commercials, but Kool-Aid was popular growing up. And so I was quick to have that little Kool-Aid ready, had my friends drinking Kool-Aid, cookies, whatever I could steal out of the kitchen cabinets where, I wasn't burning anything. I was taking the food that my parents bought for us and just feeding the neighborhood. So yes, did that all the time. My dad ended up building himself. Well, it was a project my mom told him to do, was to build a storage unit that wasn't attached to our house because we had outgrown the storage unit that was in our garage. So my dad built this like massive building. It was almost half the size of our house.
Wow.
At the end of our yard. I'm originally from North Carolina, so there's land, there's space.
Yeah.
And my dad even added a garage on there for his truck. And he fixed it up. Yes, there was storage in there, but half of it was literally, he had a ceiling fan, air condition, a sofa, a table, and refrigerator in there. So when he did that, my dad was an engineer at a power plant, so he worked 12, 14-hour days.
Yeah.
And so in the evenings, that's where my friends and I congregated to have our little parties, our little soirees.
I was going to say, it's like the perfect place, right, for you to throw your parties.
Yes, and of course, on the days that he was off, he could tell that I was in there. He's like, "Tara, things are not right in my," he would call it his house.
Yeah.
"Tara, things are not right in my house. Have you been in there?" "No, not me, not me."
Yeah.
And then going on to college, I always tell people my first big event was in college. So my cousin and I were the same age. His mom and my mom are first cousins and we're also best friends. His mom is now deceased. So we grew up together. And so we went to the same college, we were graduating at the same time. And so I was like, guess what? We are having a graduation party together. And so his parents owned a restaurant literally we called it on campus, but around the corner from where we went to college. And it was a very well-known restaurant because both of his parents both also graduated from the college that we attended. So they were well known in Greensboro, North Carolina. So we got his dad to cook, bring all the food. I lived in an apartment. He lived at home because, that's where, he grew up with Ray. So I contacted the people at my apartment complex, this is how thorough I was. Let them know I wanted to have this party. I wanted to block off the parking lot in the section where I lived at in my apartments. I went door to door to everyone in my apartment complex that affected that parking lot. I
Yeah.
told them I was having a party, and we had over 150 people there.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I
That was,
tell people that was my first big my
yeah,
first big party.
that's the first one. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so tell me today how, like how do your couples find you? Do you guys been in business for a while? Do you get most of them for referrals, or is there another way that people find you typically?
I'll say that's kind of 50-50.
Okay.
Referrals, meaning referrals coming from previous clients that I've
Yeah.
had, and then also from my vendor partners. And
Gotcha.
then the other is I don't do too much advertising anymore. I used to advertise with everyone when I first started out in business.
Yeah.
So now is people are Googling me, and how people can Google me is because I do invest in a person that monitors my website and does SEO in the background of my
Gotcha.
website. So that way couples can find me. And so it's either from Google search or referrals. And then I do only advertise with one wedding outlet, and that's Washingtonian weddings here within the DC market.
Local area business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. How do you find that the SEO piece is like paying off for you? Because I've heard, uh, well, I mean, if you think about the logic of how couples think today, right? Like if someone even mentions you, right? What do? They go search, right? So if they have an idea, what do? They go search, right? Immediately, it's like that's the first thing. So how do you feel like that's the best investment for your money for what you're like to get that return?
Most definitely. So I do have a closer relationship with the person that does my SEO.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna give her a little plug.
Hey,
Myrna
go for it.
Darami, Myrna
What's your name?
Darami of Myrna and Co.
Okay.
And that's all she specializes in is search engine optimization, website building. It is a company that her and her husband own together. Well, their parent company is called Mezzohead, but Myrna has her own branch of the business where she invests in working with small business owners in the wedding and event planning industry.
Nice.
And so she is really good at sitting down and asking you, what are your goals for your business? Who are the types of customers that you want to attract? And she gets intimately involved in your website, what your website looks like. Yes, someone else has designed my website, but Myrna is there to guide me and say, well, I think you need to change this. And then she's telling me the keywords that she's putting into the background of my website and how people are finding me.
Yeah.
She goes in and she tracks, where that traffic is coming from. And she lays it down into layman terms with me because sometimes she can talk and she starts talking so fast because she's excited. I'm like, wait a minute, time out. Let's
Yeah,
break
yeah.
this down.
Yeah. Tech people usually have that problem, right? They like,
Yes, yes.
yeah, yeah.
But the best thing is that she's intimately involved rather than I see some people, they will work with businesses, how they reach out to you. Oh, I can build your,
Yeah.
put your own page 3, this, that, and other stuff. I like the fact that I do have that close relationship with her and she's in tune with my business. And I
That's
think
great.
that's what makes that work. And it
Yeah,
is worth the investment.
that's great. Okay, so let's say so a couple contacts you. Do they usually phone call, text, email, and then what happens during that process? What does that look like?
So when couples find me, it's basically they will email me. And that email is basically they're filling out the form on my website.
Hmm.
So once they reach out to me, I respond back. My response time was within 24 hours, definitely sometimes shorter than that. But for those that are listening, we're going to say 24 hours. So they'll get a response back, and basically I'm stating if I'm available or not available on their wedding date. if I am available, then I'm asking them to, hey, let's set up a discovery call. With that discovery call, they automatically have a link to my calendar. So that makes it easy for them to see when I'm available, and they can select the time that they want to talk with me.
Right.
So from there, with the discovery call, it's usually about 30 minutes, just me trying to identify, their needs, their wants, as far as the services that they're wanting. After that discovery call, if they want to meet face to face, we'll do that, and that is complimentary. Usually after the face-to-face, that's when they're determining if they want to go with me, but I always follow up with a proposal, kind of outlining what it is that I will be providing for them.
Yeah.
And the proposals are customizable to the needs of the client. And so they'll receive that. I follow up with them within about 2 to 3 days to see if they have any additional questions. And then we close the deal, and I call it their relationship agreement, not a contract. So they sign their relationship agreement with me, and then we begin the planning process.
Great. So tell me what goes into the process after let's say they sign the agreement and you guys want to do work. Tell me what goes into the work after that. Like, you've already done some discovery, but are you sitting down with them again? Like, let's go over a couple things. Let's get some more ideas around this or that or whatever.
Yes. So once they book with me and make their retainer payment, I will then send them a welcome letter, and in that welcome letter includes some documents. Those documents include their client workbook. Their client workbook kind of outlines our planning process. They'll also get the planner client relationship document, kind of telling like how we're going to be working together.
Yeah.
And then from there, we will schedule another meeting, and it's called the onboard meeting. And that is where, yes, we spend 2 hours going over those documents that I sent to them, and then I'm asking more detailed questions about their wedding. So if let's say, for instance, this client's selecting us for full service planning, then from there, after that deep dive into getting to know what they want, I outline their budget. I outline like what are our next steps for the next 3 months. And it's usually every 90 days, depending on how long we have to plan this wedding.
Sure.
It will get a summary saying this is what we're going to be doing for the next 90 days. And so once I get close to the end of the 90 days, I'll send them another one. And every time we meet, they also get a recap of our conversation, our meeting, kind of highlighting, okay, again, this is what's next. But we're still staying in the parameters of what we're going to be doing within that 90-day period.
That's good. Now, so that's typically with like a full service. You offer other services as well?
So yes, I do offer wedding event management coordination services. And with that, somewhat the same process, except that we don't have as many meetings. I'm not going to client vendor meetings with them. They only meet with me 3 times between now and their wedding date. And those 3 times that we're meeting is me basically going off of my little checklist, my internal checklist, to say, hey, Susan and Tom, at this point in time of their wedding planning process, should have these things done. And so those are the things that I'll be going over in our meeting. They'll also get ahead of time, again, another what you should be doing within the next 90 days, kind of highlighting, oh, I think you should be concentrating on this. So that way when we meet, hopefully they'll have the majority of those things checked off of their list.
Sure. So between coordination service and full planning service, what should are there things as someone who's getting married that I have to do specifically in this other package versus, like, I know full service, you're taking care of everything for me pretty much, right? But in this other one, what are the things that I need to be thinking about that I have to do, I have to focus on?
So that's a good question. And in that client workbook, I highlight in there. So they have a task list within the
I
client
got you.
workbook.
Awesome.
And
Uh-huh.
that task list is very, very detailed, and it outlines what they should be doing month by month. And it's a cumulative list of all the things that I do as a planner. And it includes tasks or things that, over the 16 years of me being in business, of what goes on to plan.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, however, I do highlight in bold, like, these are the things that I think you primarily need to count on, to tackle.
Yep.
But if you see anything else on this list, definitely take care of that. But these are the priority ones.
I
So
got
that way they will know what it is that they need to do. And then even when we have our 3 meetings, I do give them a summary of what we've talked about, the things as far as where I feel like they're kind of falling behind.
you. Hmm.
Also, during those meetings, if they need assistance or guidance, say for instance, they're saying, "Oh, Tara, we've been to DJ after DJ, we're still not finding anyone. Is there anyone that you can recommend to us?" So then I will send them a list of recommendations also for any vendors that they may need.
Gotcha. That's good. Yeah, because I got to imagine, I mean, it's pretty difficult today. There's so many things out there, you go and then you're like, I don't know, man, how do I know which one is going to work for me? So you got like, there's probably 10 or 15 meetings and it seems like a lot of planning work that has to
Mhm.
happen on their side just to find one vendor, right?
Right. And then they also know, I'm also letting them know that, hey, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, because you're planning your wedding, you're hiring me for the wedding event management part. I would like to iron out all those kinks way ahead of time than trying to iron them out 10 days or the day before your wedding. So I appreciate if they would call me if they have any stumbling blocks or roadblocks, so that I can guide them as much as I can without falling into, oh, now I'm taking over planning your wedding.
Yeah, yeah, because I gotta imagine like there's probably some challenges that happen when people don't reach out to you and ask for some direction. And they go off and hire certain people, right? And then by the time you get closer, things just aren't lining up or things aren't working out. I gotta imagine that happens a lot.
Yes, yes, yes. And I do also offer the fact that before you sign with the vendor, if you want me to review the contract agreement, let me review it. And that kind of gives me insight into who they're hiring also.
Oh,
So
perfect.
it's not at the last minute, like, oh, well, who is this? I already know ahead of time. And
Mhm.
then also too, if they reach out to me for certain vendors and I provide them with referrals, 9 times out of 10, those referrals, because I have that relationship with that vendor, they're keeping me updated behind the scenes. Say, hey,
Right.
Tara, I spoke to Susan and Tom today, and this is what I talked about. I just wanted to give you an FYI.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That makes sense, right? Because you already have a relationship with them. It
Hmm.
just works well. What advice would you give couples planning their wedding today? A lot of times they're not always thinking about a wedding planner. I think because there's so much information out there about planning today. But what advice would you give them that might help them steer them in the direction of, look, get someone to help you with this stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on. What would be your advice?
I would definitely say it is worth the investment. And when you're creating your budget for your wedding, include in there, if you can't hire someone for full service planning, definitely, have someone that can be there for wedding event management. And make sure that it is a professional, not like your sister or your cousin or someone like that. Make sure it is a true professional, because at the end of the day, that money that you're investing in us, we can help you save money on everything else. I always joke and say that planners, we're like the MacGyvers of the world. We know everything, we know everybody, we know the ins and outs of everything. We're the people that kind of like make things happen.
Yeah, yeah,
So if we can help you, we're going to be there and we're going to tell you. We know, the market rates of our vendor partners and stuff. We know, we can tell you if, no, this is not a good deal or it's not worth the investment. So we're here to guide you, and we're here to also pinpoint out the chaos before the chaos, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Let's switch gears a little bit, talk about the business side of things. As a business owner, over the past 16 years, what would you say has been working well for you, particularly in the last 2 to 3 years?
I will say definitely, well, I'm a very organized person, and probably every planner says that, but I'm a very A-type organized person. And I would say it's basically the systems that I have in place to allow me to maintain sanity. That's anything from using HubSpot, which is a CRM that I use to kind of keep track of all of my conversations, my
Yep.
tasks, and everything that I do for my clients. And then as far as the money part of it, utilizing QuickBooks. So those are the two things that I can't like live without within my business. And
Yeah,
then also thirdly, surrounding myself with people that are smarter than me. And they always say that's the best thing that
that is
you
the best
should
thing to
do.
do. Yep.
Yeah, so surrounding myself with those people that are smarter than me, not only within the industry, but also outside of the industry, which propelled me to create the Signature CEO Conference, which is a conference that I organized, which is now going on in its 5th year,
Nice.
where I educate other industry professionals. Well, not I, but I bring in
Yeah.
speakers to educate people in the event planning industry
Nice.
about the business side of business. So
Yeah.
there's no talk about design or creativity. We all there to dive into the fundamentals of business.
Yeah. Which I think is super important. That it's one of the things that, as a small business and as a creative person, we don't always think about, right? Because we just want to do that thing and create that thing. And we don't think about the fact that, oh, you got to make a profit to survive and grow your business. Oh, you have to pay taxes. Oh, you have to, make sure you have something that helps you organize your customers together and collect information about them. And there's so many things, right? SEO, marketing, sales, the whole, yeah, everything, right? Taxes, you name it, right? I mean, it's just crazy.
Yes,
So,
and it's always something, this whole thing about owning your own business is like a revolving door. It's like technology. When you think you got a grasp on it, oh no, we're coming out with something new that you need to learn. You're like, I just learned this, so let me learn something new. So it's always a revolving door.
yeah. Well, and consumers are changing too rapidly. So
Yes, yes.
you have to be aware of your market. You have to be aware of how, what the latest things are that people care about. Not so much what, personally, I sit outside the industry. I don't work in the industry. I just collect information about the industry. And so I see people talk about all these trends and things, and then I look at consumers and go, yeah, well, we can talk about trends all day, but if consumers don't care about them, it doesn't matter, right? So you need to understand what your consumers care about, and then that's the more important thing. Um,
Hmm.
so what would you say for a business has been your biggest challenges?
That what we just discussed, trying to keep trying to keep up with everything that goes on to make my business run efficiently, and just trying to be knowledgeable. I think the part of designing and creating events comes easy, because I think the creative part of what we do is something that's like naturally inside of us. But
Mhm.
that thing of owning a business, running numbers, that's a process that has to be learned day in and day out. So that is my biggest challenge.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, exactly what we just talked about, right? So if you had to go back, 5, 10 years and tell yourself something about what you've learned, right? What would you go back and tell yourself?
Whew, diversify your business from the get-go. And that's what I teach in my mentor program, because I started out and it was like, oh, I'm doing weddings only. Don't get me wrong, I love weddings. I love my couples. I love the beauty of love. but there's just something about having that steady income, and then also just being able to adapt and do different things. And so I didn't instill that into my business until within the past 5 years.
Wow.
So if I would have done that from the very beginning, I would be a lot further than what I am now as far
Mhm.
as doing more of corporate events and things.
Yeah.
I would
So,
be where I am now with the wedding side.
right, I got you. So when you say diversify, you're talking about different types of events.
Yes, different types of events.
Mm.
Or just if you have, I don't necessarily believe in being a jack of all trades, but if you can smoothly run your business and be able to do maybe two other things, that's fine. But again, you shouldn't neglect any portion of your business if you're trying to branch out. So
Yeah.
for me, no, I'm not trying to make flowers. I'm not trying to make bake cakes or anything. I just would have, expanded my knowledge in planning more types of events and also networking in those arenas where it's going to put me into not just doing weddings. So
Mhm.
everybody in the wedding industry knows me, but who in the corporate world knows me?
Right.
Very slim. So if I would have, been able to, you know, spread myself equally among, then I would be better off.
Yeah, yeah, the opportunity to go out and meet different people that work in corporate and other things gives you the opportunity to expand your roles into other events. Yeah,
Hmm.
for sure. That's great advice. I've actually heard that often, and there are a few people that I've interviewed that are planners that actually do multiple things, not necessarily in the same lane as what you discussed, but they've figured out, look, I need to diversify, right? Even venue owners, right? I need to diversify. I need to do other types of things. Um, Makes a lot of sense to me.
Hmm. Hmm.
What would you
And
say?
always, I did a couple of talks on as far as like diversifying your income, and I always relate it to stars. So if you think about an NBA basketball player
Yep.
or a singer, they start out doing what they love, but guess what? Now they have like multiple jobs, multiple streams of income. So
Yeah.
if that basketball player was to twist his ankle or break his leg, he still has, oh, I did a movie here, or I own a couple of Starbucks, those types of things. They diversify. And
Yeah.
so that's what we, need to be able to do.
Yeah, Shaquille O'Neal's a great example of that, right? Like he took his career and he played his career, but he took the money that he made from that and made investments in lots of other things.
Magic
And
Johnson is another one
yeah,
too.
Magic Johnson's another one. A lot of the greats actually have done that same very thing, and it's true. I mean, if you have the resources to do, you should start trying to figure out how to diversify into other things if you can. Yeah, because it'll save you and it'll keep you more steady.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great example. Last question. What is your like most inspirational wedding story you have for me?
Oh, I always say, oh, this is it. This is the one. So I'm going to do like the last one, which was last year that got to me. We had very, very lovely couple. They had a huge wedding, and I had met the mother of the groom a couple of times. And she didn't talk that much, but I really didn't, take heed to it or whatever. And
Sure.
then the week of the wedding, he did reveal to me that his mom had dementia. So it's like,
Oh,
okay.
interesting. Yeah.
Um, and so, her being a part of the wedding party, I just gently asked, is there anything that I need to be aware of? Is she going to be okay? And he's like, oh yeah, she'll be fine. She'll be with her brother, she's fine. So on the day of the wedding, she didn't come to the rehearsal. On the day of the wedding, when the doors opened for the ceremony, she froze
Oh,
and she would not move. And so I was just like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And so her brother, who was standing there to escort her in, was trying to talk to her and stuff, and here I am, like, looking at the musicians, like, because we had a live
Yeah.
string music. I was like, keep it rolling, keep it rolling. She just became very fearful, and again, she did not speak. Um, and so at this point, the groom's brother, who was in the wedding, which is her other son, I got him rather than trying to bother the groom. I said, I might need for you to come up here and talk to your mom a little bit to kind of
Yeah.
coax her to kind of like go in. He went up there, that still didn't work. And so the groom looked at me, he's like, Tara, give her time. I want her to walk in. And so right then and there, that one just like touched my heart. I was just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So then eventually the groom did break out of line and he came up to his mom. And by this time, her sisters had got out of the crowd and came to the back too.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until her son that was getting married came to her, and I don't know what he told her in her ear, but she just like looked at him and smiled. That's when she started walking.
Wow.
And oh my God, tears just like started going down my face because it was
Yeah.
just like a very touching moment.
I'm already getting emotional about it myself.
And then later that night, we, the mother-son dance, right? So
Yeah.
I go over here to him before we even start. This is like, are you sure your mom wants to do this? Because now, not only is a large crowd, but now everybody is like loud and boisterous.
Yeah.
He's like, I got her. She'll be fine. She'll do it. So the music started and everything. She came out. She was moving a little slow. And I did know that he had 2 songs for them to dance to. So the first one was a slow song. And then the second one was a fast song. So her culture, she's originally from Jamaica. And so it was an island song. And oh my God, when that song came on, she just like lit up and she just started dancing everywhere.
Wow.
Not like dancing crazy. It was just like she danced like she was just like this dancer, professional dancer and stuff. And everyone in the crowd just like got on their feet and just started clapping and just like cheering. The table I was standing beside, everybody was just like in tears. So that was like my most touching moment. And so
Yeah.
later I asked the groom, I said, did you know that she was going to do this? He said, I figured she would, because he said at home, that is the only song that wakes her up.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's
So
interesting.
yeah, so it was very touching.
Yeah, that's very inspirational.
Yeah. And it just shows like the love between a mother and a
Yep.
son.
Yeah.
And she had connection with him because she was not going to walk. When he came up to her, like I said, I don't know what he said to her. She just started smiling and she touched his face and then she started walking.
Yeah, that's great. That's a fantastic story.
Yeah, and just showing patience on his part too, because he was determined that he wanted his mom to walk down that
Yeah.
aisle.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I mean, I would have wanted the same thing if it were me. So it would have, all right, cool, we're just going to hold on. We'll make this happen. And,
Yep.
yeah, that's awesome. Tara, thanks so much for your time this
Thank
weekend.
you.
And I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Be safe, be healthy. And we'll talk
Same
to
to
you soon.
you. Thank
Okay.
you, Shane.
All right. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. I hope that you found it helpful. Please share it with other people. Also, if you're getting married or you work in the wedding industry, I would love to interview and share your information with other people. Send me a text, 520-399-8580, or shoot me an email at letschat@wedding.report.